Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I figured I'd do a therapy session because, some things are working out for me, I guess, in the midst of some frustrating stuff. I think I told you guys about the little, maybe I didn't, but it was a little situation with Fidelity where I was just trying to transfer a couple dollars to myself, nothing too serious, but it was supposed to be a transaction done on the 1st. Today's the 6th. The money never came. Basically, I called them up to find out what happened, and it was my fault. I accidentally had the money transferred to an account that's no longer open. I should have closed that out, had them take care of that over the phone. But it's a situation where the money now has to then be bounced back to Fidelity, and because it was a holiday, that process takes 5 days or whatever. So now we're waiting for the money to come back into my account at Fidelity. Then I gotta wait for the process for it to then be sent back to the bank. So yeah, they screwed me up real bad with their little funny nonsense that they're doing right now. I don't know what it is, but um, it hurt me. It shouldn't be a situation where if the money bounces out and there's no account to go to, it shouldn't take 5 days for the money to come back. That's y'all doing one funny stuff. But we're not surprised by that because we're apes and we know how this works. So, nevertheless, that's just me going to be broke for the rest of the week because money is in limbo and I can't touch it. The good thing is that I had a couple dollars saved up in my Cash App, so I was able to have just enough to buy groceries that I need. And when I say need, these last 2 days I've been living off of rice, and that is not how I want to move at all. But these are the sacrifices of apes. you know, the joke that goes around is that the apes are living poor, and we do our very best to live as meek as possible so that we can hold on to our shares and outlast the very wealthy in this process. So I'm proud of myself for having the ability to bull through all of the other stuff that comes with that for me personally, and to be able to be in this position today. But at the same time, it's like, boy, do we continue the struggle. The struggle continues. These living, living humbly, unnecessarily humbly, does have its downside. So that is part of it. But the thing that I was most happy about is that cash out money was just enough for me to get my groceries. And the thing about groceries is there's a minimum amount that you have to get, right? So like, for example, if I wanted to make sure I had certain things and maybe I wanted to get it down to a certain amount to make it so that I have enough money left over, no, it was a situation where it needed to use all of the money that was in the Cash App in order to be the minimum to purchase the groceries. So it was one of the situations, either it was going to get done or I didn't have enough. And the Lord made it so that I had exactly enough, exactly enough to meet the minimum and to get everything that I ultimately need. So that was really, really one of those super blessings that I'll be telling you guys about, that kind of just align so that I can get things that I absolutely need without necessarily it being a situation where it has to work out. That did not have to work out. Especially since I've been sitting here in this household these last couple of days trying to figure out what's going on with the money, going without a lot of different things that I otherwise would have purchased sooner. I thought I had claimed the money in time for the holiday, right? So when you find that you haven't done so, and then you look up and you can't to do any of those transactions, it's really frustrating. And of course, my Cash App money was wrapped up in stock just like everything else, so I couldn't touch that money until today as well. So it wasn't like I was sitting here these last couple of days saying, yeah, that Cash App money, I could just use that to no, I needed to wait until today to be able to do that too. So it was one of them situations where it's just like I just had to live humble. And these last couple of days I've been blessed because even though I didn't have everything to make the food great, I still had just enough to make it so that I wasn't unhappy eating my food. So I had the rice and there was a little chicken left and a little seasoning, so that's all I needed. Little carrots, that's all I need. So today I will finally be able to eat a real full meal because I get everything, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal when you're trying to maintain your body at this age and you're constantly moving around and it's 100 degrees in your household and you don't have AC. Yeah, you need to be eating right. So that's something I'm very blessed to say. I'll be able to take care of that. Whatever. All right. So the next thing I want to say is just first of all, thank everybody for checking out all of these therapy sessions that I do. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who told me that I say too much. You know what I mean? That I leave all of my information out here, and that There's nothing for anyone to learn about me when they meet me if they follow my channel. And my thing is, that's the sacrifice. You know what I mean? That's the sacrifice. I don't want people to think that I think that for which I've done on this channel is normal. It's not. I've found that I want to be in a very specific lane. I want to be a very specific person, and that comes with some things that maybe other people are not going to want to follow or do for themselves if they watch me do it. I like sharing. I like, letting people understand how I view myself as someone who needs to work on certain things, and I think that the way that I live and the way that I process or whatever, I think is unique. And because it is something that I don't think I've seen very often, it's important that I leave myself out here as a case study for anyone who has some of the struggles I have, since I've never heard of or seen anyone with the struggles that I have. So that's my intent, is to display the uniqueness of my mindset, as to provide the example of what I think is very rare, which is someone who is extremely self-aware, but for whatever reason has issues initiating things within himself to do things that will otherwise help himself. That is who I am, or how I've operated for a long time. And it's usually when I see people who have those issues, they're not aware of what is going wrong or could go wrong. And if they are aware, they're unable to rationalize why they should choose the right decisions. I don't have those issues. Whatever that's in me is more so like it's like something went awry in terms of my natural defensive mechanisms when I was a young child. You know what I mean? That's how I perceive what it is that I've dealt with. Is that it started developing in me before my consciousness actually got a chance to awaken within itself. So I was already in the midst of subconsciously protecting myself from various things by having certain attachment issues or detachment issues to either my mother or isolation away from others. And I haven't been able to override that with logic and thought for nothing. It's like the urges of the intent override the logic and the otherwise desire within the consciousness to change. And because I have that issue, I've often found myself manifesting anxieties out of nowhere. Suddenly, on a random Wednesday, if I've stayed in a certain space for too long, now I'm afraid to go outside. Now I'm afraid to even go to the grocery store or certain things. It's like little stuff like that, to where once I start finding myself in a comfort zone, to help myself get out of that comfort zone requires a great deal of fight. And that I perceive such a fight is a problem. And that fight is in my head should ultimately be something that I should be able to untangle, since it's self-manifesting. And because I am self-aware. And so the frustrations of having to live my life without others understanding me has prompted me to want to share on a camera like this, because I've never met anybody who's ever understood me. I've never in my life met a single human being that understood what I struggled with and knew what to tell me. 38 years of this. It's just a bunch of times I've just, been told basically that either I was lazy or that I was lacking in motivation. And hearing that over and over again from my loved ones really messed with my psyche. It made me believe that I actually had those issues. And there was no reason not to believe it, because there was no explanation for otherwise. So instead of having answers for my own decisions, I was believing the explanations of people who didn't understand. And that ultimately further drove me into sadness and depression. And then it became a frustrating thing where I felt trapped in my own body, because I felt like I had gotten so far out of shape and so far away from my happiness and my personal appearance, till that was messing with me as a young person. As I started to develop, as a teenager and stuff like that, I decided that I was best away from people even more so because of that. Now I don't want to go to school because my appearance and various things that came with that. So there's the constant overthinking during the process, where I started to deteriorate physically as a young person. Ultimately made it so that I even wanted to kind of just not go to school, despite knowing needs for an education, the need for just overall assimilation into the world, so that you have some understanding as to how to move, how to behave, how to treat situations, etc. I understood the need for that, forego those things because of the desire to stay in a safe space that I perceive to be safe, I guess, which isn't actually a safe space. And I perceive all of that to be true, so it makes me also look at myself as someone who's ill. And when you look at yourself as someone who's ill, that comes with a bunch of things as well. So I'm trying to perceive self properly. All right, I'm literally trying to find out what the hell I actually am, because it's like, okay, if I'm looking at myself and I'm saying I'm sick, then maybe that's further reinforcing what it is that I'm otherwise trying to fix. Do I not self-diagnose in that way? Does that also play into my psyche even as a grown man? No different than people telling me, hey, you're not applying yourself properly. Used to do, and ultimately reinforce more bad within my own head. So it's like, okay, I'm going into meditation now. It's like I forgive myself for the mistakes that I've made. I respect myself for what it is that I'm doing. Just because I perceive myself as someone who's ill, that does not mean that I don't have certain strengths that allow me to have, an ability to do things that maybe will allow me to have confidence, things like that, so that your self-diagnosis doesn't bleed into a space where you're putting yourself down or perceiving yourself to be an invalid when you otherwise are not. So I think that also has played a part into what has gone on over the last year, is the perception of self and the need for coddling self and protection. It's like overlapping into an understanding that because I'm sick, I have to do that, as well as that being a byproduct of whatever it is that I perceive to be a sickness. So it's a cycle of confusion, a cycle of misunderstanding about oneself, and then they're trying to undo all of that in the process. And just all that you miss in the process of being isolated, in having that conundrum be so far into your experience on this earth. It's like there's so much more to do. There's so much more to be curious about. But I respect and have long accepted the fact that this is how my experience goes, and that I was given this problem for the purpose of being this person. So to go away from what comes naturally to this person is to otherwise deny the purpose for actually having this issue in the first place. If for not this, which can provide some good, then otherwise all it does is send me into a space of nothingness, where I'm standing still like I've always done. And so that's why I share so much, because I know that that is what comes naturally to this person that I am, and that I am this person. There has to be something to this other than just the struggles of one's own mind, because I recognize that I have certain gifts that other people have. I recognize that I can put things together in ways that other people may not be able to. I recognize that because I put myself in this isolated space, because I perceive myself this way, because I do this, this, and this, I'm a person who looks inward in ways that many don't, or can relate to people who look inward in ways that many don't. And so it's like I love being myself because I know that I'm slotted perfectly for what it is I'm actually interested in. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I've not found my place at this point in the world. It's like, okay, I know where I want to be. I'm an artist. I'm a broadcasting voice, whatever. I'm an analyst when it comes to this NBA thing. I'm a playlist curator as it pertains to blending music. I think I'm great, literally great at that. And when you guys discover me, I think you will realize how much confidence I feel I have in that. It's one of those situations where it's like, this person can do things. It's not like he's just sitting here sick and he can't change, certain aspects of culture and things like that. I believe that those things are in me. They're in me. I'm not necessarily a follower, I'm a creator. So with the struggles come the talent, and with the talent comes a happiness and a passion for the things that I feel I'm good at. So it's like, all right, it ain't just bad. It ain't just I'm struggling. This brain kicks my own butt and it does some awesome stuff. So now what do? All right, I gotta cultivate the brain. I gotta fix it. How do I do that? This is how I do that. By using the voice that I have, the wisdom that was given to me, the meditation and all that good stuff, and the experiences in the hard times, the ability to put two and two together, the analytical gift, whatever the heck you call that. I use all of it and I just let myself be vulnerable. Vulnerability is strength to me, because everybody else is trying to be strong. And that's not actual strength, in my opinion. It's just a face of strength. Strength is the ability to endure, regardless of what face you're wearing. And so that's how I feel about the situation. If I'm sitting here with a smile on my face and I'm going through hard times, if I don't have the inner peace to back up the smile, it's no real joy. It's just a face. And I think that's what people are living through. They're living through the process of wearing the face. As I've lived my life, having been so in touch with my feelings, as it pertains to what I do not like having come at me in energy. I've learned that I got to put myself in a mindset that doesn't allow for me to continue on the cycle that I've been on. And so ultimately, in sharing this information myself to you, with you, I find that I'm able to get a lot of that off my chest, leave it in the cloud, so to speak, and then kind of go back to it and see the changes that I've made overall. Now, I will admit, I haven't watched too many of the therapy sessions from the past. I haven't desired to revisit some of those times just yet. But later on, I may be able to. And that's what it's for. Not only that, but it also allows people to live through me and see some of the pitfalls of these specific mistakes that I've made. You know what can go wrong if you don't do certain things. You know what I mean? Not to say that you're not going to experience those things anyway, because I didn't go through nothing super special. But there were some things that will, maybe if you follow what I went through, you might be able to take something from it. So that's the importance of giving the information that I did. And last but not least, it just becomes a situation where it's like, I know for a fact that whatever it is that I'm here to do, it's got to be done through these struggles. That's what it really comes down to. Whatever my purpose is on this earth, I'm gonna have to get it done with the brain that I was given. And so it's about managing me, unfortunately. It can't be about me as it pertains to the life I'm in. It has to be about more than me. But since I'm so internal at all times, I have to find things that matter to me outside of me in order for me to not be completely self-absorbed and self-centered. It's just the nature of the experience of perceiving life this way. So that's why I pray so much for others. That's why I make an intent to make that something that I talk about with you guys as well, is because it's not just about the spiritual aspect of it and the God aspect of it, although that is in my heart comes first. The other aspect of it is the reprogramming of the mind to say there are others out there and you are neglecting to provide anything of substance to them when you're stuck in this space that I've been in. So to remind myself that there are hundreds of people, thousands of people that I know for a fact are out there, and that my intent is to see God bless them and all those good things, and that because they exist, I am not the center of the universe. That is something that is so important for a brain like mine, because otherwise this whole thing is about me. It's about me fixing me till me gets done, and that's like not ultimately what I want to be about. I truly don't. If you look at my art, you will think that I'm self-absorbed because I'm exalting myself in the art, putting my name in the middle of each page. Not each, but most of them. But the style of it, to me, it represents something bigger. My initials don't only represent my name. They also represent different things. BDF stands for Blessed Divine Faith, boldly dominating fear. So if you see BDF on anything, understand that's what it means to me. I'm not exalting myself. In fact, it's very important that I don't. But in the presence of doing the art, the style that I wanted to use, I wanted to put my name out front. Someone had mentioned very recently that the artist makes the art. The artist is the crux of the art in a lot of cases. So I took that, ran with it symbolically. Also, for those who want to, just curious about my art, the way that I look at it is it's like a symbolic cross. I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of my pieces. Just nothing too serious. Some of them are much more intricate than that, obviously, but stuff like that. But if you can see it, it's inverted, obviously. But those are my initials in the middle of the piece, and the intent is for that to actually represent those words. And I've made a relationship. Of course, I have a relationship with God, a relationship with Christ, and my faith. So that emblem in my heart is actually a cross. It is. It's a cross. It's not an actual cross, but it represents one to me. And it represents one to me for the faith that I'm in, to him, if I may say. It's the relationship. So for those who follow my art, I'm probably not going to say that too many times. I'm going to leave that as it is, but that's exactly what that means. And that's what I'm ultimately about. I'm trying to boldly dominate fear that has consumed my life. It has consumed me to a point where it's affected everything. How I've operated in my life business-wise, how I've operated in relationships, how I've operated in travel, in terms of what I'd be willing to do on my own, things that I would allow people to be incorporated in, group things that I'd be willing to do, how I've approached my mental health. All of it has been in protection of my comfort zone. And so to override that is basically my life's mission, and that is represented in those three words: boldly dominating fear and blessed divine faith. Of course, it is what it is. It has to be represented in everything I do, because it's otherwise what drives me. I don't have other foundations that would make it otherwise, so that I feel real confident in life. You know what I mean? It's like if not for my faith, I probably don't even want to be here with the struggles that I have and the isolation, the aloneness of my life. If it ain't for faith and belief that things can get better, or belief that I can make some difference, or the belief that I can get better at what I'm doing so that I can become excellent at it, you know what I mean? If it's not for the progression for which I believe comes directly from him, then it's no purpose for me. It's just a very long, bad movie, to be honest with you. So I'm not that pessimistic at all at this point in my life, and it's faith that's driving it. It's faith that's driving me to be an ape and keep myself involved in all the stuff that I'm doing. It's the faith that allows me to desire to be vulnerable in the presence of great danger in this world, in the presence of great manipulation, people, and all these different things that can go wrong when people know too much about you. It's blessed divine faith that allows me to believe that I'm slotted perfectly to do what it is that I'm doing, and that it's going to work out the way that it's supposed to. And that's how I move, and we'll see how it plays out. You know what I mean? Hopefully I can see success in one way or another, and try to reach these places of unselfishness, in these the places of peace that I ultimately believe are there for me to reach. So that's what it is, man. That's what it is. I think a lot of times I'm too much for the people that I've dealt with, the ladies that have been in my life relationship-wise. It's gone bad because of the different circumstances that I've not allowed myself to be a part of otherwise, because of the perception of self being this way and wanting to stay alone and not wanting to incorporate people into my situation, safety stuff, all these various different things that come to mind that keep me from experiencing life as you see it. That makes me choose to let go of opportunities and experiences that would probably enrich my life greatly. I think a lot of people may see that as sad, but what I would always tell people is, no matter what people have to understand about me is that I'm going to be me in those situations. And if I don't find myself at peace, I'm not going to enjoy them, no matter how much greatness is going on around me, no matter how much love is being poured my way. If I don't fix what it is that I've been struggling with, I'm going to sabotage it, or just not desire it. You know what I mean? Just not basically do right by the situation, because I believe you have to first be on your own side. You have to be on your own side of the table. Have your own back. You know what I mean? In fact, that was one of the words that came to me this morning as I was waking up. Stand behind you was the word that I had. Stand behind you. Have your own back. And so trying to learn how to best do that. Don't think I know necessarily how best to do that in every angle, but I think the way that I know how to do that for myself is to continue to stay on the path of fixing the inside. To have my own back would be to be a friend to my own future, meaning to start the application of good habits. You know what I mean? Start the application of things that otherwise will make me better later. And so that's what that means to me. Now, if you would have asked me about, a month ago, not even a month ago, maybe a year ago, what having my own back would mean, it would probably be protecting myself from those same fears that I otherwise now just don't want to perceive as fears anymore. And to have my own back would be to stay in that comfort zone, to be away from y'all, to protect myself from all of what would otherwise rupture my happiness or my peace as I would perceive it, which is an actual peace, because you kind of stay away from things that would otherwise help you in some cases too. So I recognize that and reject it, more or less. I don't have any wish to be that way. I want to have my own back in a different way going forward. So yeah, that's what it is, man. That's what it is. And I hope the Lord blesses me. Obviously, there's a lot to the risk that I have going on in my life or what I'm doing, but there's also a lot of promise. It's a lot of promise to what it is that I have going on as well. So if anything, I'm just taking it a day at a time, appreciating days like today where things start to just kind of work out and tally it together with the rest of those types of blessings that have been coming for the last 38 years, man. I'm telling you, that's why I have such a belief in God. That's why I hold my faith the way that I do. But the one thing I understand is there's been times in my life where I didn't have faith. There's been times in my life where I was dark, where I was really, really, really unhappy. And maybe I would not have been receptive to this type of energy. Maybe I would not have wanted to hear you can do it or being vulnerable is good, any of that. Because I've gone through different phases, I understand that it's important not to force feed information to people or force feed your beliefs on to others. Because there were times when I would not have been receptive to my very own message. But that I reached that space organically was mine to receive and to be happy and appreciate rather than be forced into it. I think that's what it's about. It's about finding that organic space where you have a relationship with your spiritual higher being or whatever you believe in. When you get to a space where you are comfortable in that way, I think everything else kind of falls into place from there. I do believe that, but you got to have some center, some base in that way, I believe, as a human, to try to battle the inner struggles that may be in your life, and if not, then definitely the outer ones. So I encourage everybody to do it their own way, man. Do it their own way. Find what works and apply it. Apply it in love would be what I suggest, because at the end of the day, people have different religions, different faiths, different norms, but we can always come together with an understanding that there is love in this world, and we should want it because it's going to help us build. It's going to help us get along. It's going to help us overcome certain things that we need to overcome within ourselves by allowing love to enter our lives and ultimately hold us accountable, and that's important. So these are things that I think about. These are things that I often know that I'm keeping away from myself by being in isolation, and why I tell people not to follow what it is that I do. It's that I'm this way, that I'm okay. If it weren't for me being wired this way, this environment would not be okay for me to be in this way. You got to be wired a certain way to live this way. And so don't be like me unless you're wired a certain way. And if that's the case, then you have work to do. You have work to do, because being this way ain't good enough. That's what it comes down to. You got to keep striving to find new ways to stand behind yourself and be your own best friend as it pertains to your future. That is important. And as long as you're engaging in energy or engaging in activities or engaging in things that go against yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to side with others properly, because eventually you, self, is going to backfire on whatever it is you're working on if you are your own worst enemy. Your group project is going to suffer because of it. And I think that that's something we need to start holding ourselves accountable for, because we love success in groups. We love being the reason this team succeeds. But a lot of times it's the very things that we engage in outside of the groups that ultimately will be the reason why the group fails. And it's not until we regret the result of that group failure that we see the fruit and change in those ways. I think it's important that we hear these words right now so we can change those ways early before the consequences of that failure actually meets us and our group. So that's what I got to say, man. My name is BDF 44. I thank you all for watching.